Anyone remember those Chicken Soup for the Soul books that were crazy popular in the 90s? Well, this conversation, just two Youngstown, Ohio boys talking about protein beverages, entrepreneurship, and life, was my version of those heartwarming, motivating, and relatable stories included within those books. And that's because I've always greatly respected and been inspired by Chris Hunter, from his authenticity and transparency to his evolving professional journey and consistent personal alignment with the beverage brands he's built. And in this current chapter, Chris Hunter is leading the plant-based protein brand Koia, which was actually a proof of concept he initially discovered more than a decade ago when investing in better-for-you food and beverage companies. Though more recently, Koia has grown into a market leader, expanding rapidly across the retail landscape and pushing the boundaries of innovation. And with protein becoming more central to consumers, Chris Hunter has utilized crucial personal insights to identify gaps in the market and is taking Koia into new spaces and formats while staying true to what its target consumers want. But before jumping into these interesting topics and many more, I wanted to quickly provide some additional context for anyone watching the video version of this podcast episode. You might notice the background is different, and that's because it was captured on site at the Beverage Forum. I was involved again in the new era of this prestigious gathering of beverage industry executives, but this time focused on helping them launch a new podcast called Poor Decisions. So do me a huge favor and follow the Poor Decisions Radio handle across all social media platforms, as the podcast will feature weekly episodes unpacking the untold stories behind the world's most iconic and emerging beverage brands. Also, an extra special thanks to Cognizant for not only being the title sponsor of the Beverage Forum 2025, but supporting this awesome piece of content. Whether you are a professional like me seeking cognitive performance or an individual focused on maintaining mental sharpness, Cognizant resonates with everyone striving for brain health. As the gold standard for acetylcholine, Cognizant is not just about supporting memory, it's about embracing life to the fullest. Learn more at the link in the description. But without further delay, here is the recent conversation I had with my good friend, Chris Hunter.
I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So this is never a big deal. I'm definitely not a extroverted, person in the sense where like this lights me up.
Yeah.
But I love this stuff, like where it's just fun to just talk about, I've been lucky enough to be in a few of the conversations where like it's some, old school guys that like just have stories that you just never heard.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Like, dang. And it's time, the age part, sometimes they're talking about things where I was a middle school or something. It's like, but yet you were a consumer or you were somebody that was watching it from afar. And then you're hearing the stories from somebody that led the business and you're like, damn, that's cool. I like that. Like I've never heard that, because unless somebody writes a memoir,
right?
It's good talk. You don't know these stories.
Yeah.
They're just gone, or maybe
Well, you only get the headlines, like the optics from the industry, right? Like you usually don't get the juicy stuff.
Yeah. What was the, I guess the point of motivation with the book? Like, what got you to that point where you're like, I got to put this down. I gotta talk about it.
I like literally fought it for years. But at multiple people over the years had said like you should write a book, and I for different reasons, right? And it's kind of like whatever. It felt ego driven. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And then during COVID, this one woman was like starting up a company and she was sharing some stuff and I shared some stories and she's like, you should really write a book. Like it could help people. And that was kind of enough to get me to actually take the time to do it. Plus all the extra time in COVID.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, whatever, I'll do it. And then I fought putting it out. It's like a never ending thing, right? Cause you write it. You're like, oh, I should add this. I should change that. Finally, I was like, this is it. I'm just putting it out. And, I don't know, maybe just moment of weakness.
Was it therapeutic though, just to be able to get all that out and like just, dump it? Like, cause sometimes those things you hold them in maybe, and then, it's nice to like just get it out and just be able to talk about it or whatever. And I'm sure there's probably some difficult, things or whatever, anybody through their story. It's like, how is the person on the other end going to interpret my experience with that? But I think ultimately it's still worth putting, it's there. Like you have to get some of that stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at being vulnerable, so I will share most of the stories anyways, but it did feel a little bit like uncomfortable being that vulnerable. I was pretty candid in the book. And, but it was therapeutic, and it kind of gave me like put a bow on that period.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, that's that. We wrapped it up concisely, and now I can focus on the next wave.
Yeah, because I remember the last time we talked, like the shift from the Four Loko to Koia, like it's a big, like, and it's so many different things. It's not just obviously moving categories. It's you as a person have evolved and changed, and like this is the new era of Chris, and it's kind of that thing. And putting that down on paper, it kind of is like you're like, boom, stamp. That's okay. Like, this is me now.
This is me now.
This is my next, thing. I'm no longer that guy that was doing the party stuff at Ohio State, and that was fun, and I love it. But I'm a different guy.
But
now.
It was a different world, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they're like sometimes time just goes by and that transition is kind of missed. Which I look back and I'm like, oh, I kind of missed some transitions sometimes. But the publishing a book like put a finality to it, where I was like, this is a transition, right? I'd already started Koia and been doing it, but it was like. It was a wrap up. So
yeah. Let's talk Koia though. I mean, because it's been, I'm trying to think of how, like, a couple years since the last time we sat down and chatted, but then there's been a big evolution in the business as well. Like you guys have come up with some different sublines and some different like extensions, and you guys are focused on, the higher end, higher content protein, but also the kid side of it, which makes a ton of sense, So talk a little bit about like, what was those thoughts of like the extension of the brand and how well it's been doing?
So if it was 3 years ago that we talked, then it was 3 years ago I was thinking about these ideas. If you remember, right? We were talking about like these different categories. We were just trying to pick the right time to do it because it's a heavy lift from the organization, right? Going into 4 new categories, right? We were a nice, simple business. We were in one category. We were dealing with one section of the retailers. We didn't have any online presence. I mean, socially we did, but like not Amazon or anything. And I think it was just time for the brand to like spread its wings. And we knew it had the permission to go in all these different categories, but protein, it was becoming clear, was like the next wave. I mean, it's always been around, but Danny said it this morning. I thought it was a good way to categorize it, of like the modernization of protein, right?
Yeah.
Like think of the modern soda trend. It's like the modern protein trend, because even 5 years ago, I could argue that protein still meant like, post gym, building muscle, but protein means something very different now. It's like part of your just nutrients every day. You're focusing on it, whether it's in snacks or pre-workouts or breakfast or post-workout, like it traditionally was. So our brand fit perfectly with that. And once we started, we just went with it all. So we went with our nutrition shakes first, the Tetra Packs. And it was kind of like trying to figure out price pack architecture. How does this work? We're a premium position. And we went straight forward online. Pretty similar price point with a multi-pack discount, and it worked really well. So we sprinted into kids, we sprinted into powders, we sprinted into elite, and within 12 weeks, we've been in Whole Foods for 9 years. Within 12 weeks, our elite SKU went from non-existent to our number one item. Wow. So it clearly shows the trend, and the move into these other categories made sense.
Yeah, I think it's a good point around like when you would have a certain high protein content. I think the perception originally was, oh, that's for, people in the gym, or that's for whatever. Where now people are accepting it protein. I need more protein. Maybe it's because of, some of the GLP-1 stuff. Maybe it's just, everything. People are looking at protein in a much different way than they have ever done before. And I think that there's options out there to consume products, I think, that are both approachable, but like from a taste perspective, I think have evolved so far from the early days of like when I cut my teeth in sports. We thought those things tasted good, but they were garbage compared to like today. I am always envious of people getting into the space like as a consumer, because they can't taste bad. I mean, there's obviously levels to it. There's some that taste much better. And I think you guys on the plant-based side, you have a much higher threshold to be on parity to this general like dairy or whey or milk-based, because that one I think has led the way. And then a lot of people that tried the early plant-based stuff, like the experience maybe wasn't all that good, or whatever it is, where I think you guys did an exceptional job to move that forward and bring it to a point where if you tried yours in a blind taste test to whoever's, dairy-based, milk-based, I would argue that they would probably struggle to understand which is which. I think like the mouthfeel, and then that's a testament to also like the food scientists and them, like they've done a great job at understanding how to make those things better for people or to be more exciting for them to taste. But I think for you guys, that's some of this is a timing part of it as well, as like 3-4 years ago, like maybe the market wasn't ready.
Yeah, it might not have been. I mean, I think looking back on protein, it was always, like you said, you convince yourself that it tasted good, but it was kind of like, I got to get this down, and let me get the best of the worst, right? And you really like accepted your protein consumption. Now I think you can actually enjoy it. Like we call them love letters from consumers. They actually love the product. They enjoy drinking, and that's kind of a new thing for protein. It's really been like tolerated in the past. And I think one of the reasons that we've won that we're winning is that we have a variety of flavors. Vanilla and chocolate will always make up a bulk of it, but these unique flavors provide some variation for different occasions that you like. I like drinking a cinnamon horchata in the morning, right? Post-workout, I just want to get down as much protein as possible, maybe vanilla and chocolate, right? So the flavor variations I think do matter. But
I also love the kids aspect of it. And that's maybe like the millennial parents having kids, or, even Gen X, a little like they have taken their pursuit of trying to get better in their nutrition and their health and kind of helped that consumption pattern for kids earlier and kind of introduce them to different things. Like I think we grew up obviously in the same place. Yeah. Literally the same place for people who don't know that. And we grew up on, arguably, the Schwabel's breads and like the stuff like great, like just like, the stuff that's like maybe not the most nutrition
currently
dense.
That's getting banned.
Yeah. So then we didn't really I didn't even know anything about that. I didn't turn around a label. I didn't know anything about that. But now we know much more as adults, and we are passing that education down to them. Yeah. And saying, hey, there's these great products and brands like you that, are obviously living an extension of your own life. Like you want to offer things that your kids would enjoy and kids would love. And it's authentic to you because like, obviously this is something that you generally would do anyways. Why not offer it with your own brand if you think you can bring something unique to market?
Yeah. The kids line was like really, personal to me because my wife was involved in developing it. I have 3 kids at home. They were drinking Koia anyways. Like creating something specifically for them was an amazing process. And I always think of the pet industry, right? Like people will say pet owners will spend more money on their pets than they'll spend on themselves, right? Well, think about your kids. Of course, you will do anything for your kids, right? And so the idea of developing something that was an extension of what parents are already drinking, maybe kids are already drinking too, but catered specifically for them. And then making it nutrient dense in multiple layers. Like when I say it's personal, it's very personal. What I mean by that is like my middle son was born dairy intolerant. So we became a dairy-free household, which was the motivation behind Koia and plant-based in the first place for me, right? But then as the kids line was developed, it was like my wife was adamant that she wasn't going to give it to the kids unless it was organic. So we went with organic. Then when we looked at allergen free for the broader base of their friends and to take it to school, like that was really important. But then when you even look at the vitamin and mineral blend, like we've done genetic testing. I have what's called an MTHFR defect, a methylation defect. And so that means I don't process toxins as well as others. And 40% of the population has it, specifically in boys. My sons all have it. So forms of B12 are not good for them that are okay for the rest of the population. So cyanocobalamin is not good for them, but methylcobalamin is. So we used methylcobalamin. Same thing with folic acid versus folate. And so it was a very, curated product that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, it takes like the technical aspects as somebody building the product and move it into an emotional like story. Like there's a reason why you did. It's very intentional. It's not just, I heard this is a buzzword, or I heard that, like, you speak to a lot of colleagues in the space, and a lot of them do things because maybe it's the most attractive commercially, and not to say that's a terrible thing, but I always love when a founder's like, I'm making these for a very intentional reason, and that's connected to something that's about the most important thing in the world. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. So we're in a meeting at whoever, Kroger, or if you're at Walmart, and you're explaining that to them, there's an emotional connect, like there's something there. It's not just, this is a founder telling me about a great product. He's telling me something that's just near and dear to his heart, and he's going to fight for this to make this, as successful as possible.
Yeah, and the data can suggest that it's a really good opportunity, and that's great. And we wouldn't do it only for the personal reason, but when it's data and the personal reason, it's more powerful.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And I think even getting your wife involved too. I mean, because she's has a background in holistic health. Is that So I mean, I think that's important. The whole family's involved. I mean, it's funny because when we first we first sat down, like you weren't doing a lot of even like you know, mentioning back to the book, like the self-promotion part of it is like odd. You know, you're like, I don't want to talk about myself or my own thing.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's just not. And then now I've seen that kind of progressed out and like, oh, you know, I'm owning my story. I'm owning this. I'm going to go out there and talk about this because there's a lot of things that you have that are super valuable that people need to know about. And that's not only business, but that's, you know, moving into family, dad. Like, how do you blend all of that? That's kind of important storytelling, especially for something like me that's like, I'm years behind you and like I have a 1-year-old. So like I'm listening to some of this stuff, like it's interesting to hear. And I think it's important and it's not self-promotional. It's important to tell those stories. If not, like, where do I learn that stuff from?
Yeah, but I think that's the difference, right? When people will tell me if I put something out, whether it's a video or write something on LinkedIn, like usually it's just me sharing something and not expecting anything back from it. But what's really valuable is someone's like, oh my God, that really helped me in some way, or that was valuable. I didn't make this mistake because of it. And so reframing it that way, I'm like, oh, this is not self-promotion. This is actually just putting out things that somebody may find value in, you know?
Yeah. So what's next for Koia? Is there a next, like something on the horizon, or is it just execute?
Yeah. So if I do anything new in the company right now, the company will kill me.
Yeah.
The ops team is already sifting through a bunch of stuff. I mean, think about this. We vertically integrated 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys all in-house at this point, or
No,
is there
so
a small bit that's not?
Well, we are producing all our refrigerated products in-house, which was the plan. And then when we shifted into 4 new categories, all of which are shelf stable, all of which require different manufacturing capabilities, we went back out and we're now working with 3 co-mans, right? So there's a lot involved in that, the co-man relationship, the inventory builds, the finished good, you know, there's a lot to piece together. So we really are in execution mode. We have a lot on our plate. We have a lot of opportunities to bring to life. We really want to show the picture of like Koia as a platform protein brand, the brand being platformized across all these categories. And so that's the immediate goals. Like, let's just execute on what we have in front of us.
Yeah, I think you guys are. I made a comment, I think, in a video, like, you know, it's moving in the direction that there's going to be some really interested strategics looking at that, you know, because there's a hole in a lot of portfolios for especially plant-based protein, which, you know, and I think you guys have it, and it's just a matter of time before, when it makes sense. I mean, hey, you know, you don't have to, but I think that's at the end of the day. I mean, there's going to be some interested parties on there regardless.
Well, we just want to keep doing what we're doing. I mean, we were talking about it the other day, and I challenged somebody to think of a lifestyle brand, protein brand.
Yeah.
Forget powders, because, you know, Kurt, a friend and investor that created Vital Proteins, that was an amazing lifestyle brand. But for the most part, you really can't think of any real lifestyle brands in protein. And I think we were forced to create a lifestyle brand because we went to market, like, awareness wise, through social media. You're forced to kind of do storytelling and stuff. I think that's really going to play a big part in kind of how the brand comes to life in the future.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for sitting down with me. Appreciate it.
Always fun.
But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.